together with all of you this morning who are gathered here in the sanctuary. For all of you who are watching online, welcome to the journey. There's kind of a little bit of a backstory to what I'm going to do this morning, and it started many years ago that after one of my families or one of our some of the trips that I've done with some of the guys, our time on the trail, that I come back and I share lessons from the journey. And so we had the opportunity last week to go out, my family, spend a few days on the trail up in Yosemite. And so this morning I'm bringing to you some lessons from the journey. And I have to say a couple things about this just going in. First of all, that for some people this is like a journey family favorite. I mean, people I think sometimes have lived vicariously through our stories, and I think some people have been invited into stories through our stories. And so that part I celebrate, and I always do this with a little bit of hesitancy because I don't want this platform, this place, my place here, to be just about sharing my family vacation pictures, right? I mean, that's not what we're here for. They're great pictures and they're great stories, but it's really important to me that this be about more than that. And another part of it is, and just the final thing in way of preparation, is that my hope is that in addition to sharing with you some things that I'm learning or being reminded of on the journey that I hope will encourage and inspire you, I also want to encourage each of you to think theologically about your lives. Theologically, to think about God in your life. And where is God right now with you on your journey? And how is He meeting you in ways that maybe you miss if you don't stop and think and reflect and pray and allow God to speak into those places and into those challenges and into those struggles. So this year, our family did the North Rim Trail, which is the north rim of Yosemite Valley. It is the only trail that we have done the whole trail multiple times. In fact, we've done this particular trail on 3 different occasions, and I'll explain a little bit about that later on in the message. But just kind of for some context, the North Rim Trail, because it's along the north rim of Yosemite, it hits several high points, El Capitan, it hits Eagle Peak, it hits Yosemite Point, and then North Dome and Indian Rock. And as you move from west to east along the valley, you get closer and closer to Half Dome. And because of that feature, right, it is a trail that it's not really very long, but there just aren't very many easy miles on this trek. You're either going up to the next peak or down to the valley, or up to the next peak or down to the valley. You get the idea, right? You're always either going up or down. It's never easy. And the cool thing about it is when you get to the top, I mean, there are some amazing vistas that you see from places like the top of El Capitan. Next slide, Ron. From each of these points, when you get to them, just beautiful, amazing pictures along the way. But the downside is this, right? That it is just a lot of uphill, right? Next slide, Ron. There we go. Right, you're always going up. And it's challenging. And I mean, at this point, we're doing the trail this year, and as we're doing this up and down thing, it's harder than it's been before. It's way harder than it was like 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years ago. This thing, and I just had this sense that it started to feel like that as I'm carrying the weight and feeling the burden of it, that the window is closing on my ability to do this. That the window is closing. That you simply can't strap an extra 45 pounds on your back and go up and down forever. There's this recognition that that's just not possible. And so with that, as I'm feeling like this window is closing, there's a tinge of regret for just the fact that along the years, and especially in the last couple of years, we've missed some trips, that we took a year off because of events that happened and stuff that happened in the course of our lives, that we couldn't do a trip. And I'm like, man, we can't do this forever. And I let those opportunities pass by. This tinge of regret. And also kind of a hint of sorrow to think about the day that we can't. And to be clear, right, I'm nowhere near finished. I see the window closing, but I'm not ready to throw in the towel by any stretch of the imagination. But recognize that I'm already less capable than I was. And if I travel too far down that road, I can fall off a cliff. If I travel down that road saying, whoa, what am I going to do when I can't? It's not a happy place, which is where the lesson, this lesson for the journey intersected with my trail. And the question, or this sense of the window is closing, was confronted by the question, what story are you believing? What story are you believing? Because there are competing stories, right? There's this one story, and this is very prevalent, and I catch myself saying this, and I hear other people saying it in all different kinds of ways, but there's a story that says we have one life to live. Seize the day, make the most of it. This is all you've got. The days that you're here on this planet Earth are all that we have to live, and we need to make the most of every day. And when those days are over, when it's done, it's the end of the story. We go off to, if you're a person of faith, to that eternal church service in the sky. If you're not, worm food, right? The story ends. But the story that I profess to believe, the story that as followers of Christ we profess to believe, as people of faith, is that's actually, this story is not the end of the story. It's not even the most important part of the story, that this story is a journey that is preparing us for a future story. And that story ends with these words that Jesus says that he is going to make all things new. That he's not just like preparing a place in heaven for us to live on a cloud where we go to church every day and sing, we've no less days to sing God's praise than the day we first begun, but he's actually going to make all of creation new, and everything that's been tainted by sin and stained by it in this world is going to be refreshed and renewed. So actually you'll be able to walk through Yosemite Valley without all of the corruption and the disruption of humanity and sin, and experience in a whole new way. That I'm not losing anything forever. And it is a life-altering story to know and believe that is true. Because I know from experience, from observation, and from my own life already, right? You live long enough here, you will lose everything. Jesus says, but that's not the end of the story. You walk with me, and you will have life, and you will have life everlasting. And we get this whole thing back for all of eternity to explore. What story are you believing? What story are you living in? The second lesson from the journey comes from the fact that I found myself, and I guess it's probably a follow-up to the first point, I found myself falling more than usual. Like slips and trips all over the place. There's some debate about how many times actually I fell. I'm going to say 4. But there's kind of this philosophical question of if a Tim falls in the forest and no one sees it, did he really fall? And if there's no mark, it didn't happen, right? No blood, no bruise, it didn't happen. 4 times. And one part of that is I've had to take some time off some of my training from running and stuff, so my legs are a little weak, my core is a little weak. I also have some boots, and the tread's a little worn out on my boots, so there's a little more slip factor that comes into that. And there's, to be honest, just two parts carelessness. Sometimes I just start walking through a field of down wood and find myself laying on top of the down wood, being right there down with the wood. And so there's some of that. But there's this other part of us, and here's the lesson, right? Extra baggage is not your friend. Extra baggage is not your friend, right? When you're carrying a 45-pound pack and your body starts to move in a way that you don't want it to go, the pack on your back takes that momentum and continues to pull you in that direction in a way, in a force that you're not accustomed to managing typically. And so extra baggage is not your friend. The other thing about that momentum is once it lands you on the ground, and particularly if it's more on the back side than on the front side, that static move, as hard as it's like it moves you faster, it is way harder. It takes way more energy to get it back up off the ground after you're there. Extra baggage is not your friend. And so Deb and I had this conversation along the trail. It's like, what can we do to lighten our load? What can we do to lighten our load? Because it's wearing on us and it's pulling us down and we don't want to stop. And so what can we do to lighten our load so that we can continue to go? Not so that we can do less, but so that we can continue to go and farther and longer. And I think it's a really important question for all of us in the course of our lives. Right? What weight are we carrying? And how is it taking us in directions that we don't want it to go? And how is it holding us down when we need to get up? And I think of Jesus' invitation in Matthew chapter 11. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." So we thought at the end of the trail, we're going to take all the things out of our pack that we didn't use, and we're going to weigh it. See how much extra weight were we carrying that we didn't need. What would it mean for us to just stop for a minute in our lives and say, what extra weight am I carrying that is not actually functional for me, useful for me, helping me on this journey through life that I'm walking on, helping me get to the places I want to go, helping me do the things that I want to do? Where can I lighten my load? What can I let go of? And some wall sits and a new pair of boots may be in order as well. Next. It really helps to travel with someone who knows where they're going. On a part of our trip, we're walking across the top of the Indian Range, and it's the highest point on our journey. And we run into a really large group. And the first person I meet along the way, because we're coming from opposite directions, so scouting for information, says, "Is there any place for us to camp ahead that's not so windy?" And I'm like, it's not very windy here. I've been on the trail where it's windy, and this is not it. And so I said, well, these are the options. This is what goes here. This is what goes there. You guys, figure it out. Well, later on that day, we had to go for a water run, and so we had hiked down North Dome and back down into, there's a creek at the bottom of North Dome, and as we're approaching the creek, I see this large group off to the side, and they're camping in just like this plush green mosquito-infested fern forest, but there is no wind, to their credit. Like, all right. So we walk down, we get to the creek, And to our fault, like we were not entirely prepared either. I have to be, full disclosure here. We get to the creek and we start pumping water, and it's like it is a mosquito-infested swamp. We didn't have any bug spray. We didn't have all of our mosquito nets, and so Kaylee says, I'm going to go back to this group and see if they have any bug spray that we can use. So like they don't, but they do have bug spray. So she goes back up there and she gets to them and asks them, and in the course of the conversation, they says, there's water? It's like, you can't hear it running from here? Look around you, my friends. There is nothing this green anywhere in this area if there is not water flowing underneath your feet. And instantly, they're all getting up and running down to the river because they're dying of thirst. And I start talking to them, and the person that they are leading them on this trip is a person who has been to Yosemite, has some backpacking, but they didn't know the trail. And I'm talking to them, I'm like, well, did you guys do this? Did you do this? No. It's like, you missed the best parts of the trail that you're on. You had no idea that there's water. The next time you come to Yosemite, please call me up and let me guide you on your trip. It really helps to have someone who knows where they're going. And when I pack, and this is true, moment by moment, by day, I'm reminded again on the trail, when it comes to water, when it comes to routes, when it comes to campsites, that Jesus says, I am a good shepherd. On this journey that you're taking through life, I will lead you. And it isn't just a metaphor. If you listen to how he says it, to how he communicates it, it's not just a figure of speech. It's the kind of relationship that he wants to have with us. He says in John chapter 10 that this good shepherd, Jesus, he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. That this is actually the kind of relationship that Jesus came to give us with him, to restore our connection to the Father. And it is meant to be a step-by-step, day-by-day experience. And I think about how often I'm trying to find my own way, and Jesus is simply saying, listen to me. I will lead you. I will be your guide. And I love the trail because it brings me back to that place every time. I wake up in the morning now, I was like, oh, Lord, where are we camping tonight? Show me the way. Where's the water going to be? Help us find it. Step by step, day by day. Now, Yosemite, have you all been to Yosemite? Right? If you're watching today and you live in California and you have not been to Yosemite, I want you to fall down and repent, sackcloth and ashes, right? Anyway. It is a place that attracts people from around the world. Somehow Californians, many of them manage to miss it, but people come from, we met somebody from South Africa, somebody from France, somebody from, literally all over the world, people come to Yosemite. And they're drawn by, the towering waterfalls that are just exploding in the spring and the granite walls that reach to the skies. And just awesome. You can literally stand in the middle of the valley and take a picture, 12 times around and put together a calendar. It's spectacular beauty. And at the center of it all lies this rock that we call Half Dome. And for all the beauty and awe around you, Half Dome is kind of the iconic feature in the valley. And North Dome is, I told you we've done this trail 3 times, is our family's favorite trail. Because as I said before, as you walk down the trail, you have all these just incredible scenes of Half Dome. And you get to see it from all different angles and perspectives. And so our family over the years, we have seen Half Dome from far away. And we've seen it from so close that you could touch it. We've seen it literally, not just from the road, but we've seen it from every side, north, south, east, and west, and from different angles. We've seen it at sunrise and at sunset. Yeah, thank you. Amazing. We've seen it in different weather. We've seen it in sunny days and cloudy days and stormy days and even ashy days when the fires are burning. We've seen it in from up high, actually above it. If you're on top of Cloud's Rest, you're looking 1,000 feet down onto Half Dome. We've seen it from below, from Mirror Lake, looking up at Half Dome. We've seen it from the shoulder of Half Dome, right alongside of it, and we've actually seen it on top. Jesse was the first one of our family to make it to the top of Half Dome, and there's a little plaque on the side of that picture that has something about lightning striking, and she'll have a great story to tell you if you're ever interested. It's her story. So Jesse was the first, but we've all been there. Everyone in our family has made it to the top now. I think it was, I don't know, several years ago. We've all been on top of the rock now. And I got to tell you, lots of people go, lots of people travel from all different places around the world to see it. And they see it and they walk away, and it's a great memory, it's a great picture, and they hang it on their wall, right? But there's something about this rock that for my family, it's personal. That it has captured us in a way that I don't think that it impacts other people. Our kids have literally, they've grown up in the shadow of the rock. 2010, 2015, 2021, that our family has grown up hiking around and different vantage points of the rock. That we have kind of a unique relationship that you can, Chris here is, I'll explain in a second, don't get too worried about that, right? So just, I think he's actually trying to pick it up and take it home. Maybe? I don't know. And this, I have a really difficult time even describing. I'm not sure what's happening here. Go ahead, Ron. It's Deb's hand. It's her ring. She says she was reaching out to touch it, but it kind of looks like she's like asking for his hand in marriage. I don't know. Right, this rock has something on it, and final picture here from one of our family's 2 tattoos is on my son's leg, and it is what else but Half Dome. And so I started thinking about this on the trail, and then I actually went to each of my family members and said, why? What is it about this rock that has so captured us? And, kind of the off-the-cuff response, well, it's just really cool. Right? It's so awesome. It's so beautiful. It's in the middle of this incredible landscape. There's an element of nostalgia. I do think there's an element, and this comes out, that it's a gift, and we see it as such. James says that every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, that we see it and receive it as a gift that God has given to us. We had North Dome. We're on top of North Dome, which stares directly across the valley into the face of Half Dome. It's the best view in all of the valley of Half Dome. And we had North Dome completely to ourselves for about 18 hours. Because a storm was rolling in and people got spooked from going up on the top, and we were far enough on the top where we were camping, so we were relatively safe. And nobody else came. So we had, and it was just like, this is a gift. This is our rock for the day. And we receive it as such. But beyond that, what is it? And 2 of these come from their responses, and the third one from my response. But I think they're all rocky metaphors. And the first rocky metaphor is from Matthew chapter 5 through 7. Jesus is preaching one of his most famous sermons, the Sermon on the Mount. And at the end of the sermon, he says, hey, anybody who listens to the words that I've said and puts them into action is like the wise person who builds their house on the rock. If you go back and you read the Sermon on the Mount, from beginning to end, it starts off with the Beatitudes, and it, blessed are the poor in spirit, and blessed, blessed, blessed. All of those things are about who has access to the kingdom. And you read on, it's the light of the world and the salt of the earth, and then it talks about the promises of God and his coming kingdom, and it really, start to finish, you can attach every piece of the Sermon on the Mount to this. It's all about relationships. The building your house on the rock is all about building your house on relationships as God meant for us to experience in them. It's all about relationships. It's about a wise person building their house on the rock. Now, we didn't build, have not built, will not build a house on top of Half Dome, right? Even if they would let us, we wouldn't do it. Because, who would want to see that? Not even we would want to see it. Glacier Point, maybe. Top of North Dome, yeah, maybe. But not on top of, we're not literally building our house on the rock. But I will say, as a family, we have lived an incredibly, and continue to live an incredibly blessed life. But a part of that story is not anything less than blessed. But there are parts of our story that are, I would say, in the realm of crazy in ways that have been built on shores that are a little bit sandy. And for my part, I think that I've invested in things, committed to things, sought things in the course of my life that weren't rock. And with that comes craziness. But the times that we've been on the trail, and the times that we've been together as a family on the trail, are the times when I believe that I have been most present to my family, that we have been most present to each other, that God has been most present to us, that God is always present to us, that we've been most present to God, right? Most aware of his presence. And that our foundation as a family has felt most solid, or maybe even been revealed as most solid. And it's more than just about making memories. The trails that we've hiked are like threads that God has used to stitch the pieces of our life together. There's all these pieces, and we're on the trail. It's like stitching them together in a way that makes them like a beautiful quilt. We've hiked literally almost every trail in Yosemite Valley. And we liked every trail outside of Yosemite Valley that we've hiked. We always compare it to Yosemite Valley. And at the center of this valley is this rock. And so, where's your rock? Right? Where is that place that in your relationships that you're circling around and coming back to that keep you connected, that help you find your way through the chaos and the craziness? And to be honest, for us, it takes a day and a half on the trail to decompress, and everything changes. this year, half of our crew, everybody was on the trail for the first time in several years. But half of our crew joined us halfway through the trip. And we had decompressed, and they may not agree with my assessment of this, but they decompressed, and then the other three come in, and all of a sudden we're compressed again, and another day and a half we're decompressed. I've been watching this, tracking it for years and years and years. Where's your rock? Now, second rock metaphor. The rock that will never crumble. Well, you might think at this point, wow, you guys like worship this rock. We do not. We worship the Creator. We love His creation. And Half Dome reminded us itself that it is a rock, but it is not the rock. June 29th, 2015, we stood on top of Half Dome, celebrated my birthday. It was a great day, never forget it. And then we walked off the trail and we went home. July 2nd or 3rd, sometime that night, if you see the slide that you're looking at, there's a red mark on there. A 100 by 200 foot slab weighing 5 million pounds fell from the face of Half Dome. It is crumbling. In fact, the very reason it exists is because it is exfoliating all the time. Right? It used to be like surrounded by dirt and grub and everything, and then erosion washed it away and left that, and then pieces are falling off to the point where, eventually, sometime in the future, Half Dome will be something else. There will be other amazing features in the creation, but it's crumbling away, even a rock. And so when I asked my kids, what is it about Half? One of my kids actually said, when that fell, it's like Half Dome's. It's the rock, that it shook something inside of them to remind us, hey, this is amazing. It is a rock. It is not the rock. It takes me to Psalm 62, where David says, my soul finds rest. My soul finds rest. It is well with my soul. My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in time of trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. There is a rock that will not crumble. In the final lesson right here, and this is mine, and this is unique to this year, right? That there is also a house that will never fall. There's a rock that will not crumble, and there's a house that will never fall. Jesus said to Peter, as they were approaching the transition, when he would go to heaven and the church would begin on earth, empowered by the Spirit, Jesus said to Peter, on this what? On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. Jesus showed John the end of what's the story? Jesus showed John the end of the story. John chapter 21. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Right? Bride. Scripture says that the church is the bride of Christ. So at the beginning of the church, right? On this rock I will build my church. At the end of this age, what do we see? We see the bride of Christ coming, that there's a new heaven and a new earth. They're coming together, being united on earth. The bride of Christ is being united to the groom. The church is at the beginning of the story, and the church is at the end of this story. And Paul reminds us, together, we are His house, built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets. That the church is the house that God is building. And the cornerstone, Paul says, is Christ Himself. That He is the foundation that God is building it on. that we are carefully joined together in him. That the church is the family of God. In the ways that my family goes out on the trail and we do and have these experiences and are doing life together, that the church is living life together as a community. And Jesus uses, and Scripture uses these images over and over again of a husband and a wife, or a father and a child, or a mother and a child, or brothers and sisters, are all like flooded throughout the Scriptures of what it means to be not just related by blood, but to be related by spirit. Becoming, Paul says, a holy temple for the Lord. And in him, you two are being built together, becoming a dwelling on which God lives by his Spirit. This becomes important to me because the church is clearly coming out of the pandemic and all the challenges and the struggles of the year. We're in a season of transition. And everyone's kind of saying, we don't know where this is going, and we don't know what the church is going to look like coming out of this, because a lot of things changed, and people's lifestyles have changed, and people's habits have changed. People actually have relocated. I think 5 households from our church have moved to other places in the last year and a half, right? That hurts. And it kind of creates this sense of, okay, but we have a guide, right? We're not on this journey alone. And the church, according to the Scripture, the church stands at the center of history. The church stands at the center of history, looming larger than Half Dome over Yosemite Valley. The church is God's plan for continuing his mission in the world. The church is God's plan for expanding his kingdom. The church is God's plan for his kingdom come, his will be done on earth as it is in heaven until Jesus returns. The church is being built on the rock of Christ, and it is his house. And I sometimes think that and I sometimes think we undersell the church because we're so aware of our weaknesses and our struggles and our challenges. And yet somehow amidst all of that in history, the church is still here. And the church is still growing globally. And the church is center story. People of God, right? If you have concerns or fears about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Let me tell you, the church will stand. We will stand because it is God's design and God's purpose. And he will guide us, and he will show us the path that leads to life, and he will provide all the resources that we need to carry out, to execute the plan that he's given us. And one day, and this passage is center in my life. Is of this vision of a glorious body that is a crown jewel of God's creation. Being taken into the throne room to stand in his place before our Creator. To see him and to know him, to honor him, and to praise him with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength in ways that we never could in this lifetime. The church is central to the vision, to the dream. So, right, we cannot, should not, why would we let up? Why would we stand in fear? Why would we shake in our boots? Church, let's press on to fulfill our calling, because our house will not crumble. Lord, thank you for this family, for the journey that is your people gathered together. Then in ways that talk about the trail and celebrate the trail, but the church is a whole different kind of foundation that has provided our family a place to learn and to grow and to connect, and to love and to serve. I pray that as we face a new season, as we walk into this time of transformation and transition, God, give us eyes to see, give us ears to hear, anoint us again, refill us, refuel us by the power of your Spirit, reawaken our hearts where we've gone to sleep. Revive us, invigorate us, crystallize, clarify our vision, strengthen our confidence. Lord, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.